And a good Monday morning to you, ladies, gentlemen, fanatics of all ages. Welcome to another episode of Phillies Therapy, where things are they're slightly on the dour side this morning. Let's put it that way. The Phillies wrapped up a winning road trip. Yes. They went 6-4. They gained ground on the Mets. Yes. They ended that road trip by splitting 4 in DC against the Nationals. That, of course, however, was not the big news story to come out of late last week, and that was the Phillies pitcher Zack Wheeler had developed a blood clot in his upper right extremity. Vague terms are something you should get used to for this episode. As we are not medical professionals, we are going to do the best that we can to tell you what we've learned and heard and can try and take from this potentially very serious condition that Wheeler has developed. The potentially part of that carries a lot of weight here because we're at a point right now where things could be any number of outcomes, possibilities. It could be that Zack Wheeler returns to this team in 3-4 weeks. It could be that Zack Wheeler does not throw another pitch for this team this year. It could be that Zack Wheeler's career is compromised. We don't know. It runs the gamut. We're going to do the best we can. But that is going to dominate at least the early part of today's episode because it is so significant, not just for Wheeler, as a baseball player, Wheeler as a person. He's obviously got a family to think about, and this is a condition that needs to be monitored and taken care of. But because this is a baseball podcast, we are going to be talking about the ramifications and effects that Zack Wheeler's absence due to this condition will have on this team for the rest of August, potentially the rest of September, and into the playoffs. So with that rather uncharacteristically serious introduction, I guess we can get right to it. Let me welcome in my co-host. He is the Athletics Phillies beat writer, and he will help me try and wade through all of this as best we both can. He is Matt Gell. Matt, hi. How was your weekend?
Hi, Paul. I mean, I think, first and foremost, I think, there's, when you hear blood clot, I mean, you want to, there's a lot of non-baseball thoughts, right? I mean, certainly Zack Wheeler's health, I think, is first and foremost. And, I think the Phillies are hoping to have a few more answers this week. And as Wheeler starts to see some different specialists this week. But I mean, with that being the caveat, I mean, I think the baseball ramifications are quite significant. And, I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know. I mean, I think at this point you have to assume the worst, assume that he doesn't pitch again for them this season, and kind of go from there. And, as you start to try to unravel all of the different byproducts and ramifications of this, it's there's a lot to think about. And there's just, I mean, you can put it out there and just say it. I mean, if Zack Wheeler doesn't pitch again for them this year, and that's a big if, because again, like you said, Paul, we don't know yet the severity of the injury. It is a rather rare, usual injury for a pitcher, but not unprecedented. And we'll go into that a little bit. But if they don't have Zack Wheeler for the rest of the season, again, it's a severely damaging development to their championship odds.
The big strength of this team, as we have said all along, is their rotation. Their rotation does what many other teams, maybe no other team's rotation outside of, I don't know, maybe Seattle or a fully healthy Los Angeles can really do. And that is pitch regularly deep into games, give quality innings, rack up the outs. And they were led by Zack Wheeler. Zack Wheeler has led this rotation for years. He has been stalwart. And so this rather sudden departure is jarring on a couple of levels. To look at it from the baseball side, it now opens up many new doors. Some of them intriguing, some of them a little bit dicey and white knuckly. We'll try and go through them as best we can and figure out exactly what this rotation could look like, what the plan might be, assuming Wheeler will be out for the rest of the regular season. We'll usually work on that assumption and try and figure out how they patch it through from here. Of course, just to level set things here, the Phillies are still 5 games up in the division. They wrapped up their road trip with an 11-9 closer than it needed to be win in DC over the Nationals to split that 4-gamer. They now come home for 6 games, 3 against the Mariners, and then they welcome back the Nationals in for their final series of the year together. And Matt, I think the attention immediately turns to the man who made his return from a multi-month absence on the injured list yesterday, and that would be Aaron Nola, who could not complete 3 innings. He was handled cautiously in his first outing back, got singled to death a little bit, and then a couple of doubles rang in, and the whole thing just kind of spun out of control. Nola for the year now, such as it is, has made 10 starts. He has 52 innings under his belt, and his ERA is just under 7. And he, with that in mind, becomes more important because with Wheeler out, he is one of the few true starting pitchers who we can expect to exclusively hold that role and title through the rest of the regular season. It is very much a question what Jesus Luzardo, Taijuan Walker, and really even Ranger Suarez might be come October. And so, Matt, Nola came back yesterday, looked, like he had missed a couple of months. How important is it that Nola recaptures some of the form that he had in the years leading up to this and not the form that he's taken so far here during his 2025 season?
What is on the scale of beyond extremely important? I mean, you could make a list of guys, like if you're trying to make a list of guys, of Phillies players who are most critical to the operation in a hypothetical post-Wheeler world for the remainder of 2025, I think Aaron Nola is number 1.
Okay.
And I say that because you really need a right-handed starter, 1, for the playoffs. And 2, like, we know what Aaron Nola can be. And I understand if he is not going to be that old self over, the course of a full season, over the course of the full contract, over the course of whatever. But you're talking about roughly 2 months now between now and the World Series. Mm-hmm. And Nola has thrown a lot of innings over the course of the last few seasons, but he's gotten a prolonged period of inaction this season for the first time in his career, essentially, and of his life, honestly.
Yeah, really.
And you need this guy to be something for 2 months, for the next 2 months. You desperately need this guy to be something. And I'm not saying you need him to be an ace, okay? And I'm not saying you need him to be Zack Wheeler, because he won't be. But you need him to be a capable, reliable, dependent postseason starter in this hypothetical post-Wheeler world. And can he do it? I don't know. The initial results, returns, not great. But I do think that you can't rush a judgment here. Like I do think there are some things that went right in his rehab and went right in that first start. I think starting with the initial velocity he had was okay. It was his first start on his 5th day since during the rehab. And you just gotta, I don't want to say cross your fingers, but I mean, you have to just hope that Aaron Nola finds something. And even if it's not Nola pitching at 93 to 95, which he's been in postseasons past,
yeah,
there's just he's gotta be something for you. I mean, because if you look at it, and I know we're doing a lot of jumping around and jumping to conclusions here, but their issue lies in the idea that their 3 best starters could be left-handed. That is a potential problem in the postseason, given that in the National League, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Brewers have all handled lefties pretty well, like better against lefties than they are righties. The only teams that are right now in the National League against lefties, it goes OPS wise, it goes Dodgers, Cubs, Brewers, Phillies. Okay.
Okay.
Padres are 8th in the league in OPS against lefties. Mets are 10th. Reds are 12th. Um, if you have a first round matchup against the Mets and you want to use 3 left-handed starters, not the worst thing. Um, Otherwise, though, like it becomes difficult. The math just becomes harder if you have 3 lefty stars. If it's Sanchez, Blizzardo, Suarez,
Mm.
I, I don't know. I mean, like before the Wheeler injury, the latest injury, the big question I think for the remainder of this season of the next 6 weeks was who will be the third starter in the postseason, right? With
Yeah.
Nola coming back and Suarez showing some vulnerabilities, Luzardo being hot and cold, who becomes your third starter? And now we're asking that about the second starter. And clearly, in this hypothetical, if Wheeler is not available for you for the remainder of the season, there are some real questions here. I do think that the one thing that this does is it just really, again, increases the importance of getting the 2 seed. Phillies are tied right now for the second best record in the National League with the
Mm-hmm.
Dodgers,
Yep.
entering play Monday. And if you get that 2 seed and you get the bye, you only need 3 starters. For that first 5-game series, a division series, and you also get a chance to rest everybody for the week, obviously, if you don't play in a 3-game series. So that 2 seed was important before, and it's even more important now.
It may be hard to catch up to the Brewers with the run they were just on. They've built now a 7.5 game lead over the Dodgers and Phillies, and with about 40 games to go, a little less than 40 games to go, it's not insurmountable, but that is a large lead. Milwaukee has done a lot of work to secure one of those spots, and so it will probably come down to this fight between the Phillies, the Dodgers. The Cubs are right there. The Padres are obviously still in the hunt. You can't rule the Mets out either, even though the Phillies are up by 5 games. Um, Having the opportunity to rest and reset while shorthanded, yes, that becomes more important. I mean, we had we had the weird discourse luxury last year of talking about whether the bye would help her or hurt the 2024 Phillies, because really everybody was available and that was kind of all we had to talk about. Now it actually has some sort of tangible benefit, I think. If you don't have Zack Wheeler to throw out there, you
The
look,
fewer games you have to play, the better.
yeah, honestly, it doesn't set the Phillies' hopes and playoff odds to zero. Far from it. This is still a team with a lot of talent, right? We've said this before. If they
Oh, but I
have,
mean, this is a meaningful. I mean, where would Wheeler rank in terms of players on this roster who you cannot afford to lose? Is he number one?
well, yeah.
Is Schwarber one? I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, maybe Schwarber because he's so far ahead of everybody else in the lineup. But
It's
it's either
probably
Wheeler or Schwarber.
Wheeler.
Yeah,
It's
it's one or
probably
two.
Wheeler.
It's
Yeah.
one of the two of them. So yeah, it's it is significant. It is about as significant a blow as any contending team can have injury wise this year. Not just the Phillies, any of these contending teams. He is a singular entity in this play. He would have entered probably as the top ranked starter in the field of the whole playoff field, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it sucks and it hurts. But the team, they've got enough there to cushion the blow and make hay, right? But they have to find a way to do it, and they have to find a way to get the guys who could fill in for Wheeler to get them right. And a lot of that starts with Nola, who can make 7 more starts between now and the end of the year, roughly. That is 7 starts to warm up, ideally win the games and help secure the position, of course, but get right and make sure that the team can count on him as one of those options, because it is still very much an open question whether Luzardo or Ranger can be that additional starter and what form that's going to take.
Well, I mean, it's funny because all of a sudden, I'm not saying the bullpen is the strength of this team now, but I mean, there's fewer questions now. It feels like about the bullpen than the rotation,
No, you're right.
which is an absolutely ludicrous thing to say.
You're
But
absolutely right.
come October, I mean, they're going to start if this is the world they're living in, if this is the pitching situation they're living in come October, they're going to manage differently. And like you start to think about Ranger Suarez or Jesus Luzardo as like a one or two times through the order kind of guy. And
Mhm.
then we're going to go to the bullpen. I mean, it's not ideal because we thought there was going to be a strength here in terms of how they could deploy their pitchers, right? And like you start thinking about take your best 9 into October, and use them as much as you can. And that number has just dwindled here, but um, you know, having Duran at the back like does change some things for you, especially if you're willing to push him a little bit in terms of more than 3 outs. Um, you're going to be asking a lot of some of these guys to step up, and that's just how it's going to have to be. If you don't have Zack Wheeler, you're going to have to ask other guys to really just take on more, and it will be a challenge.
Duran, for his part, has gone or recorded, I should say, more than 3 outs in a game twice this year.
He has a
Uh,
history of doing it.
yeah, both times were in July 5th against the Rays, and then July 22nd against the Dodgers, where coincidentally he led up his only home run of the year to Shohei Ohtani. Duran, of course, pitched on Sunday, coming in relief of Max Lazar, who, speaking of stretched, we tried to see him stretched over the finish line in a kind of crazy game from a pitching standpoint, and he just couldn't quite get there. He ran out of gas, and so Duran came in a game that was a 5-run game to finish it off.
Not great.
Matt, I think the timing of this, I know sounds weird to just talk about the timing of this, but again, baseball podcast, we're going to talk about it in baseball terms. The timing of this injury and the baseball environment that we have here now, a few years into the reality where August post waiver deadline trades are not a thing, also limits the Phillies to just their in-house options. Essentially, there are still moves that can technically be made with players who have not been on a 40-man roster this year. But when you're getting into those waters, you're not really talking about guys who were expected to be significant major league contributors, I guess we can say at that point. And so your eyes turn inward. It's kind of a weird phrase, but your eyes look internally to the organization. And who's still there but Mr. Andrew Painter, who continues to get his work in at AAA. Matt, I almost ironically, I think this seems to gently increase the odds, despite Painter's performance, that he could make his debut at some point over these final 6 weeks of the season. Has there been any indication of whether that might be the case, or is it still just a matter of this guy's got to string together a couple of pretty good performances in AAA before we think about that Wheeler injury or no?
Yeah, I think the latter more than the former. I mean, I think there's risk in bringing him up because even if you're bringing up for, let's say, a spot start, let's say you want to go to a 6-man rotation, just one turn or 2 turns. Um, what if you bring him up and he really falls on his face, and then you send him back, and that's kind of the first impression, the initial impression, the first taste that he gets of the majors. I mean, I just think the noise will be louder about, did they overplay their hand with this guy? And I don't think they have. And I've talked to as many people as I can about Andrew Painter because I haven't watched him enough. I see the lines, and obviously I've watched some of his performances, but I'm trying to talk to rival evaluators and people within the organization who have seen Painter over the course of the season, not just recently.
Mm-hmm.
And the consensus that I've gotten is that most people are not changing their grades on him, their projections on him. I do think though that there is less confidence in those projections. So I guess
Okay.
I don't know how to better say that. I'm trying to say it the best way I can is that he's still the projections from before this season that he could be a top of the rotation star, that he has plus 3 to 4 plus offerings. In the mind of a lot of evaluators, that has not changed. Okay. I think their confidence in him being able to command those offerings and to be able to handle adjustments and meet the projection.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, the confidence in that has gone down a little bit just based off what they've seen. And I mean, the fastball command is a big thing. And I think first year, full year post Tommy John, like I think some people are willing to chalk it up to that. I think that there are questions though about how the Phillies have handled Painter, right? I mean, and this goes back to 3 years ago when
Yeah.
he was 20 and like, Dave Dombrowski in the front office like made no secret about it. It's like, hey, this guy's in play. And he was going to be in play, like out of spring training. And I think that they put some, unnecessary expectations on him. And this is not a media creation. Okay. Let me make that clear. Even before this season, this is not a media creation. This is not a overhyping a prospect. I mean, this is reading and reacting to questions asked and answered by front facing Phillies officials. And even before this season, they say, well, July-ish, Dave Dombrowski,
Yep. Yep.
we expect him to be a contributor for us like July-ish. That could be June, that could be August. Those are direct words that came out of his mouth. Um, did they overplay their hand? Probably, I guess. I mean, I think they had a lot of confidence, just as much of the industry did, that this guy is a stud. And I still think that there is a lot of belief in that.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened like they thought it would. And I think it bears repeating that before Andrew Painter got hurt, the highest level he had reached was double A. I mean, I think that while he's also coming back from major elbow surgery, uh, he's also needing to learn how to attack better hitters of a
Yeah.
better quality. And
Right.
that's not something he necessarily had to do lower in the minors. He was very fastball heavy, and the fastball was good, and he blew it by a lot of younger hitters. And as he's gotten to AAA, he's learned that that's not a strategy that's going to work, and that's not, that's obvious. Like they knew that. But I also think that he's tried to throw his fastball a lot still because he's trying to get a feel for the command again. So you have two competing dynamics at play here. You have a guy who needs to throw his off speed more. And if you go look at his game logs, he threw more changeups in his start over the weekend, maybe than he ever has in a game. And the changeup played. He had a rocky first inning, and after that, actually pitched kind of well. But while he's trying to get feel, and throw these off speed pitches more and better sequence these hitters who can sit on fastballs, he's also trying to still throw the fastball a lot because he's trying to get that command back. So I don't know if he's a guy that I'm bringing up right now. I guess that's a long way of saying that I think there's too much downside to bringing him up right now. I think that's where I land. Um, Now that said, we saw it with McAble, right? And McAble was pitching well before he got promoted, but they bring him and say this is for one start. This is a spot start. We need a sixth guy to give everybody a rest, and we believe in you. This is it. One start, no matter how well you do.
Mm.
Maybe there's value in that. Like it clearly, like there was value in that for McAble. Um, you bring up Andrew Painter, like he's a competitor. Got great stuff. Like maybe the best in him rises and comes out of that, and it's a good experience, and he feels good about everything, and everybody feels better about it. That's possible. I just wonder if the downside is outweighing that possibility.
It's very valid. To me, it's very valid. It's not even necessarily a matter of fit, really, because he would fit as a potentially major league ready starter to come up, make a spot start, give everybody else in the rotation a day. Um, I think probably more telling would be what the corresponding move to get him onto the 40-man roster would be. Hint, hint. Like,
Well, I mean, they've got so many moves they have to make here in the next few
yeah,
days.
yeah,
Like Alvarado will be back, I believe, on
uh-huh,
Tuesday,
yep,
and that will take two roster moves. We'll take a move to get him on the 26 and a move to get him on the 40.
hmm
Um, yeah, there's a lot at play here, Paul. I mean, like, do you stick with a 5-man? Do you go to a 6-man? Because now they wanted to go to the 6-man, not just for Wheeler. They wanted to go to the 6-man because they felt like Sanchez's innings are piling up. Suarez's velocity is down, and everybody finally is admitting that maybe this is not good. Luzardo's innings are up there. Like they wanted to go to the 6-man to try to help everybody. Now, like, can you afford to do that? I don't know.
It does bring that extra added importance to the bullpen, which was stretched almost to its limits on Sunday, but has been better. It has been better for a little while now. David Robertson has arrived and looked, like David Robertson. He brings the tying run to the plate a couple of times, but but Duran has been fantastic. Kirkering's still been really good. Strom has probably still given up a little bit more contact than you'd like to see, a little bit more in the air, but he's getting outs and he can still provide a little bit of length. Tanner Banks is still good. And then we, come to the cliff where things get a little weird. Uh, Matt, I look at other teams and see that they are in more dire straits pitching wise than the Phillies are right now, even with the Wheeler injury, even with the fact that a third of this bullpen unit still is probably not the most trustworthy, even though we're talking it up a little bit right now. Other teams are in worse situations, I would say. But doesn't take away from the need for the Phillies to find something that will work to get them through the rest of this regular season, because they have not clinched. They do not have a spot. It is not guaranteed. They have to actually clinch something before we can really think about the machinations and movements around getting these guys ready and prepped for whichever playoff series could come first.
Certainly, and the Mets are, have played their worst baseball they could play essentially for the last 2 weeks, and they will play better baseball. So yes, I mean you need to step up your game, and you've got 7 games against them, 3 next week, and then 4 at home in the middle of September. But I wish we could have a more substantive discussion about Wheeler, and it's difficult. Obviously, even the club and the player, they're still learning about his medical situation, but in doing some research and just hearing from people around the sport, once Wheeler's diagnosis became public, there is one case that stuck out in recent baseball injuries, and it's hard because, again, I'm not, anyone who's chiming in on Zack Wheeler is not treating him. They don't know the situation. It's not, again, I'm saying this with as many caveats as I possibly can. But in 2020, Merrill Kelly had what appears to be almost like an exact same experience as Zack Wheeler, where his right arm became heavy, and that was a descriptor that was used by the Phillies over the weekend, talking about Zack Wheeler's arm. And Kelly developed a blood clot near his shoulder, and ended up having surgery to remove his rib and I think another bone maybe near his neck. And those are symptoms that are associated with thoracic outlet syndrome, which is a rather debilitating injury for a pitcher. We've seen instances of this over the years, but I think there's an important distinction to be made here, is that there are 2 different types of TOS, which is
thoracic outlet syndrome. Yeah.
There's the nerve related one, which is what is the most common one that you hear about. That's the Steven Strasburg one that ended his career. But the nerve related TOS is not associated with a blood clot. The blood clot version of this would be something called like a vascular TOS, and this is what Merrill Kelly had. And Kelly had it late in the 2020 season. I believe it was like early September or second week of September, and he had surgery, to correct the issue, and was throwing about 6 weeks after the surgery. Had a normal season and seasons after that. Made 27 starts in 2021, made 33 starts in 2022, famously pitched against the Phillies in 2023. They made, I think, more than 30 starts that season. Has been a fine pitcher since that surgery. So there are a lot of similarities in the cases and the symptoms and how it came about. Again, I don't know that this is what Zack Wheeler is dealing with. It is just merely a possibility, because when you hear blood clot, first of all, it's scary. Second of all, it's not something we hear often about in terms of pitchers, but it's not totally uncommon. Okay. Maybe there's a scenario in which, Zack Wheeler is on some sort of medication that corrects this problem, and he's throwing again in 3 weeks. I don't know. I think for the purposes of this exercise, and as we've been talking for the last however long we've been talking, you almost have to assume the worst. You have to assume that um, you're not going to have him for the remainder of the season. And I think there's both long-term and short-term conversations to have here. And if this is indeed what he has, it sounds like the short-term is not great. You might not have Zack Wheeler for the remainder of the season, but it seems like the long-term, at least, if this is what he's dealing with, is not catastrophic, which is, I guess, the most delicate way of saying it, because it could, we're talking about something that's scary. I mean, it could be catastrophic. I mean, that's
Yes.
terrible to say that, but I mean, that's, and thoracic outlet syndrome is a scary phrase. It's a scary word. But if it is the vascular version of it, it sounds like, it's manageable in the long term.
I mean, we're not saying some of these words to like scaremonger or drum up fear. Obviously, that's not our bag. That's not what we do here on this show. We don't just talk about this stuff to try and get a rise and try and, poke at some bigger feelings. We are saying this and describing it this way because it is that unknown to us and unfamiliar to us as outsiders, people who don't have to deal with the condition, just like trying to figure out in our context, in our framing, what this could mean. But the fact that
This,
it is so unfamiliar and the fact that it leaves open that possibility, like you said, for potential catastrophe, it could have affected the thing he uses the most for to make a living.
yeah, and I want to read you. I want to read you a quote. I meant to say this too. This is from a 2023 Washington Post story,
Okay.
and I want to read you a quote that from Merrill Kelly.
Okay.
This is Kelly says, for pitchers, TOS surgery to address a blood clot is much more straightforward than nerve issues. The diagnosis is more straightforward. The recovery is more straightforward. I was lucky in that way.
Okay.
So that's one person's perspective. And again, we don't know if this is the exact situation that Wheeler is dealing with, but there are quite a few similarities here in terms of how it all came about. And we'll have more answers, this week. I mean, I think it's interesting because I've done a lot of reading on this now in the last 24 hours, and the blood clot, the TOS, driven by a blood clot. This is a quote from the founder of the Center for Thoracic Outlet Syndrome at Washington University in St. Louis.
Sounds like somebody who might know what they're talking about here.
It presents, quote, it presents suddenly without any pre-existing symptoms. These are players who are playing normally, no pain, numbness, tingling, no nerve type symptoms, and suddenly they get arm swelling and there ends up being a blood clot in the subclavian vein. And that's the thing, is like the TOS that we think of, that I think of. I don't often think about thoracic outlet syndrome, but this is
right.
With pitchers, it's associated with tingling and numbness in the arm and in the fingers. That is a nerve issue. And that does not appear to be a symptom that Wheeler was dealing with here. It is the blood clot, I think, that really separates, this from other possible diagnoses. And it's why this vascular TOS really sticks out, just doing a lot of reading. And I won't say all the caveats again. We don't know, but
right.
It seems like a certain possibility.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that's as much as we know right here, late Monday morning on August the 18th. And as things become more clear, hopefully, like we on the outside will be informed of certain things. We'll know what we know. Again, this is kind of unfamiliar territory for me too. I'm used to talking about, guys pulling a hamstring or feeling some forearm tightness or just something like that. And we all kind of know what to expect when we hear about things like that. But talking about a blood clot in a throwing shoulder is just like, so that's hence all the careful language there. And I'm sure all of you out there understand.
We did go this whole episode without talking about Taiwan Walker, which I do want to mention Taiwan Walker because
can we please, let's give him some flowers.
At least I do. Sort of. Yeah. I mean, like, I'll give him the flowers in that, like, I think he's been eminently important to the operation here in the regular season. I still don't think he's a guy that you really feel great about handing the ball to in a postseason start. I guess if you had to in a situation where it's like a fourth game, maybe that he would come into consideration, but among your top 3 postseason starters, I think you'd like to have other guys. But to this point and for the remainder of the season, Taijuan Walker is kind of important.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and he's given them quality.
Matt, I said this in a little bit of cross promotion. I was on with my buddy Pat Gallen on CBS last night,
Humble brag.
and yeah, and you remember, of course, in the 2022 NLCS, not that it went well, but the Phillies won a game started by Bailey Falter, right? Bailey Falter, of course, did not finish the first inning in that game, but they won the game, didn't they? And if
Boy,
what we're
there's
talking,
a lot of
yeah, no, 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 no,
logical
no, 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 no,
leaps you're
no, no.
doing here.
Well, here, this goes back to what I was saying a few minutes ago. Losing Zack Wheeler obviously hurts. It's big time, and we all clearly, obviously, and implicitly want him to get back to being the Zack Wheeler we all know and love, taking the mound and have a healthy, normal life. Okay. The Phillies can still win this thing without Zack Wheeler. They can get away with having to start a game, with having to have Taijuan Walker or somebody start a game for them in the playoffs. There is precedent. They have done it before. They have won these games. The result is actually there. Is it the best process? I don't know. If it's the best you got, it's what you got. And the rest of the team has to cover for it, right? How many times have we said this season that the big boys have got to step up? If the stars play like stars, this team is going to do well. Well, guess what? By and large, the stars have been playing pretty much like stars, especially recently. And the team is in first place by 5 games. If the stars play like stars, the Phillies can make it happen without Zack Wheeler. That's just the attitude I have to go into this with, because it is such a, it's almost harrowing is the word, because it's so sudden and unusual and unfamiliar. But that's what I have to fall back on as a bit of self-comfort as a fan of this team, to try and see them make it through. Famously, the Braves won in 21 without Ronald Acuna. They also had time to rebuild their outfield after that injury happened to kind of compensate. Phillies don't have that luxury because we are in August. They just have these internal options. They can't go out and, make an August waiver trade move for somebody. That's just not on the table. So it's a little bit different there, but
well,
you can win
getting
without
Aaron Nola back after the trade deadline is almost like a trade deadline acquisition.
Oh, and our favorite phrase, makes it in.
I'm just saying, I'll go back to where we started here, is that you're right. The Stars have, by and large, done their part. Aaron Nola's got to be in that group because he is making a lot of money and is also, a guy who in the past has been a major contributor on good Phillies teams. And they need some sort of version of that guy. They need it. And I'm not trying to make it all about him, because it's not. They should score more runs. That would help. They really need something from Aaron Nola.
Yeah. Well, I guess speaking of the runs real quickly, as an aside, it was nice to see Alec Bohm come back and hit a 3-run.
And they need him too. And that's a big boost. Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's a big piece of your lineup that's back. It's a big piece.
Yeah. All right, so that's basically that. That's where we stand right now. The Phillies are compromised now without their ace for an undetermined amount of time. It becomes incumbent upon the rest of this roster to fill in. Christopher Sanchez is now the guy at the top of this rotation. This is his rotation for the rest of this regular season. Aaron Nola's got to come back and round into form. Jesus Luzardo and Ranger Suarez have to find something left in the tank for however many more starts they each have for the rest of this regular season. And Taijuan Walker just needs to keep being this version of Taijuan Walker. I will give him flowers. I feel like he's been very valuable this year. The ERA is a little bit shinier than some of the other numbers for sure, but he's helped the rotation. He has helped this rotation and has really bounced back nicely from a disaster last year. He has really been a big help. He's been good. So if he keeps on doing his thing, that's fine. And we'll see whether somebody else enters into the mix. Nudge, nudge, Andrew Painter. Who knows? We should hopefully know a little bit more this week. I guess it depends on the further prognosis or treatment on Zach. We don't know exactly what the timing is, right? Like we don't have an expectation for the next update yet.
No.
Yeah. All right. So
sometime this week.
yeah, that's still a little unknown too. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. And just kind of go from there, because that's all we can really do. Me as a fan, and Matt obviously beholden to the updates that come from the team and
I'm
its
not
medical staff.
beholden. I'm trying to find out some
Yeah.
stuff, But this is it's a tough one. And
Yeah,
like again, it's some of this is a little bigger than baseball, and I think
for sure.
yeah, just jarring news. I mean, really, like when it first happened. So appreciate my colleague Charlotte Varnes. She was did a lot of the last trip, and she was in Washington writing about the various developments, including the Nationals needing to use the bullpen card to take the Phillies closer off the field when injured, which was quite the thing. But Charlotte, I some really good coverage of the weekend of all the things that happened, and yeah, I don't really know what I'm stepping back into today. So can't wait to see.
Yeah, talk about strange nerve things happening there. My goodness. That that was a heart in your throat kind of moment. Like his ankle just went dead, and then oh no, he's fine. No limp. It must just like hit like the ankle funny bone or something. I don't know. It was a weird weekend. And yeah, shout out Charlotte, who has on her first year on the beat has had some rather interesting developments come across the last couple of weeks. Oh my goodness.
What do you think about? I mean, like for the rest of the season. I mean, Alvarado coming back on Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're going, 5 to 6 deep in terms of like leverage guys. No, I mean Tanner Banks, like
Tanner Banks is good, man.
Right?
Yeah, I was like, can we call Tanner Banks
really
good?
solid? I mean, like
G
really
good?
solid. Like, so now you roll out, like you say, your trust tree is essentially Duran, Kerkering, Strom, who's been throwing harder of late, I think. Alvarado, Banks, Robertson.
Oh boy.
And Robertson's looked decent.
Yeah, he's looked all right. I mean, that's about what I expect David Robertson to look like right now. And yeah, in that way, we talk about the rotation cushion, the bullpen being deeper, having that floor raised, which was a phrase that we used a lot around the time of Robertson signing. That's really important now.
Yeah, I mean, and this is going to be the line that they're going to have to toe here is like, they better get ready to pitch a lot, but you can't kill them here because what have we seen in past postseasons is that those guys are just out of gas by the time they get to October, and it's cost the Phillies postseason series.
And look at what it's doing to the Mets right now too.
I mean, Dodgers and Mets. Yeah, I mean,
Dodgers. They're running these guys ragged out there, and more often than not, the bullpen is letting up multiple runs during their outings.
Yeah.
Their combined outings. Anyway, I don't want to speak too much about that because the next thing I know, they're going to run off like 25 inning scoreless streaks or something. All right. Anyway, I think we can wrap it there. That's about where we sit at the moment. We're all still just kind of, well, me at least, kind of holding my breath, waiting for the next bit of news. Hopefully it continues to be good. I would qualify this latest development, such as it is, with the type of blood clot being good news, or at least better than the alternative.
Well, we'll see. We don't know.
Yeah, right. Like that's where we're at. So I'll continue to put those good vibes out there. Hopefully you all do too. And apart from that, I guess with Wheeler being the story of the week, that's all we're focused on right now, right? Until, well, you're mostly focused on now until that news comes out.
There's a million other things to focus on, but that's all we'll focus on this podcast.
Yeah. All right. There's only so much attention you can give, right? Like
that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, Phillies are home. They start off a 3-game series with the Mariners, followed by 3 with the Nationals.
Big dumper in town.
The large dumper, my wife's favorite baseball nickname, Big Dumper. She's glaring at me. It is not her favorite nickname. That's it. We're doing the vamping thing. I'm going to wrap up the episode here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you want more, we have a Patreon. It's $5 a month. Patreon.com/Phillies Therapy. We would love to have you there. We have a vibrant Discord community that is getting more active by the week.
Apparently some doctors too.
Some people with like actual legit medical knowledge, which was, helpful for what it was. And everybody, smartly was like, not actually giving medical advice, but it's that kind of community where, you know, we have our heads screwed on straight and we're rational about the way we talk about these things. If that sounds appealing to you, come join us. Patreon.com/Phillies Therapy. Thank you everybody for hanging in there, for listening. We'll see what happens over the next week or so and hang with you all as best we can. If not, we will catch you all around this time next week. This has been Phillies Therapy, part of the Believe Podcast Network. For Matt, I am Paul, and we'll see you next time.